A lot of you have asked about, how to deal with hurt, anger, and resentment. And seconds after I uploaded the video, I figured I should share my own personal story. My brother was 16, 17 years older than I am. And he was the only child for years, and I popped along. And he didn't want to share our dad for whatever reason. I learned, my mother had several miscarriages between the two of us, and that's part of why the age. And so I came along, my father was in his 40s, late 30s, early 40s. And my brother just resented me. And he treated me poorly. And to the point that by the time, let me back up, I'm missing a part. Even though he resented me and didn't seem to like me, I wanted a brother. I wanted a big brother. My brother was fairly popular. He played football in the whole 9 yards. And, even though he is an adult, he could have been my father, I wanted a brother. And I didn't get that. And as we got older, the resentments got older. He got married at an early life, early age, and perhaps too early. And he's the first baby. And the first babies are the test tube babies. Parents are maybe stricter with the first child than they are the second, third. And I was a baby, so I didn't get the spankings he got. And even though there was quite an age gap, he was resentful, as it is in a lot of families. I mean, look at your own, where the first child get the crap beat out and the second one gets ignored. As a parent, I understand that, because there isn't a manual that comes out with kids. So I was stricter with the first one much more than the second one. The second one you realize, it ain't a big deal. Let it go, Elsa, let it go. But over time, I became resentful to him. And by the time I was in my 30s, I was done with him. It was so bad that I chose to be homeless and live on the street for a few weeks and live with him because he was so unpredictable. And I didn't want to bear the risk of being put out of his house because I said eggs instead of eggs. I mean, that's how it was. And he hit hard times at one point, and the person he was with said, how come you guys are not closer? And he told me a story. And my brothers told me many stories, most of pure fantasy, but this one had a ring of truth to it. When I was 4 and he was 20, our father was working at a construction site, and he was in charge of watching me. And at one point, I stepped on a nail, and they consoled me probably with food, and everything was fine. Our father drove up, and this what makes the story believable is that when our father drove up, I started screaming as if I had just stepped on another nail. And I can believe this because I'm quite the actor. All my kids and family go, God, you're so dramatic, Rodfather. So I believe the story. But unfortunately, our father was angry with him. And in front of his friends, he hit him. And from that point forward, mind you, I'm 4 years old, he decided he wanted nothing to do with me. He hated me from 4 years old. I was in my early 30s when he told me this story. I was married, had my own kids by this time. And so years went by. I moved out of California, moved to the East Coast, and got married and did a whole lot of things that was never party to because I hated him, he hated me, so we hated each other. Somewhere in my 50s, I had blood clots, and then I subsequently had a mild heart attack. And I got a call from him out of the blue. And he was concerned about me. And this touched me because I really didn't give two shits about him. And from that moment, we stayed in contact with each other. We didn't talk on the phone because it always led to an argument, but we could text. And we stayed there, and eventually somebody, probably me, said, "I love you." And surprise, surprise, he said, "I love you back." And we'd have fights now and then, and he'd hang up on me, and I'm evil. I would say, "You hang up on me, there's not going to be any peace and justice. I'll call you back," and the whole 9 yards. And even though he lived several thousand miles away, we were in contact. You know, if I didn't hear from him for a while, he'd call me or I didn't call him. He wasn't the brother that I wanted, and I wasn't the brother he wanted, but there was love. A few years ago, he died. He had cancer, and he sort of kept things to himself. He's the subject of one of my most popular blogs. And I went to visit him a few days before he died. A week, I think either a few days or a week before he died. And while his daughters were in the store, he and I were talking, and he was like, "Well, you know, we need to take a vacation together and take time. There's some property in Texas I want us to buy, and we need to sort out some property we have there." And it really and truly, you know, two brothers. He died. I think over time, we just accepted each other as we are. It's one of the greatest gifts you can learn. We all have what we think a relationship should be. But the reality is you're two different people, two different mindsets. And so we accepted each other as we are. I miss my brother. I miss him something awful. Isn't that interesting? So I thought I'd share this with you who asked me about relationships. Someone I hated. He's the only person I could think of I hated. You know, there are other family members who treated me poorly, but because I loved him, it was just more personal. And the intensity was there. But here we are in 2022 and I miss him. I thought I'd share that with you. This is a Rodfather 916. I'd like to know what you think, or if you've had similar situations with your family. Acceptance is the greatest gift for me. And I do that in every relationship. I have kids, I have family members. I don't agree. There's even a couple I'm not sure I like. I love them, but I'm not sure I like. But instead of being angry, resentful, this is who they are. I'd like to hear your thoughts, but I thought I'd share this. Bye now.